everyone, and welcome to the Blues Hub postgame show / Blues Hub weekly show. I'm your host, Brooke Grimsley, alongside former Blues forward and Stanley Cup champion Jamal Mayers. The Blues Hub postgame show is presented by Hot Shots. St. Louis is home for all the games all the time since 1990. Find yours at hotshots.net. And make sure while you're here, for all those coming in, that you like and subscribe this YouTube channel. Follow us on social media for updates. We'll be here daily to provide coverage for all of your favorite local teams like the Blues tonight. Jamal, thank you so much for joining us. I wish that we had a win to talk about, especially considering the Blues were winners of 4 straight going into tonight with Dallas. But sadly, for everyone who's tuning in and was watching tonight, 6-3, the final score. We'll start out with the bad, okay? We have to address what happened there in the third period for the Blues. What just really fell apart there?
Well, I think anytime you allow 4 power play goals, it's very difficult to win a hockey game. And I think that you run into a juggernaut, a team in Dallas Stars who has designs on going deep into the playoffs and winning a Stanley Cup and has been adding players of late. And in fact, they've added some really good players in Cody Ceci and Granlund from the San Jose Sharks. So this is a team that's really loading up offensively. But again, you cannot allow 4 power play goals and expect to win a hockey game. Back to the drawing board, not really. No reason for panic because the Blues have been playing extremely well heading into this game.
I just want to touch on the Blues PK because that has been a bit of an issue for them this season. I mean, even after going like 8 for 8 before yesterday, they came in 29th in the league tonight, and that's where you were really talking about there in the third period. That seems to be a pretty big weakness for them.
It is, and it's really something that for me is fixable. It's probably most frustrating for the coaches and the players responsible. But just like offensive players, and I was a penalty killer for years, you go through confidence lulls and you feel like anything you do and everything you do is going to end up in the back of your net. And so just like offensive players, you develop confidence and you lose confidence based on how things are going. So a lot of times it requires almost tricking yourself, trusting yourself, managing the lanes. And for me as a forward, it's about protecting those lanes. And what you're really trying to do is, first of all, they're their best players are on the ice. So what can we limit? Where are we going to allow them to get shots from? You can't spread yourself out too thin. And for me, there was way too many passes in and around the box, through the box, back outside. You can't ask your goaltender to be able to make those types of saves. You've got to limit what you give them. Keep them to one side of the ice, be willing to block shots, protect lanes, and allow your goalie to see the shots coming in. But when you're indecisive, Brooke, you become hesitant, and then offensive players, they salivate. They see that fear, and they take advantage of it.
For people who are coming in right now, make sure that you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And also in the chat, you can interact with us. So drop any questions that you might have for Jamal, especially with the Blues and the way that they have been playing here lately. Just one more thing I want to touch on, because, of course, a lot of people are watching the wildcard standings right now for the Blues, and they really needed those 2 points tonight for that wildcard spot. What does this mean for their playoff standings now moving forward?
Well, it certainly doesn't help. But, again, the tendency is because they have played well, going into the break and coming out of it, played extremely well. The tendency is, are we going to judge this group on the 5-game, 6-game sample size of late? And does that detour management's decisions, what they've been thinking for the last month and a half? And to me, the team decided a month ago what the plan was for trade deadline. As excited as we must be as fans, yes, they're close. Yeah, they have to jump 3 teams to get to that wild card. I would temper your excitement because sometimes you just got to rip the Band-Aid off. Sometimes you just got to say, you know what? What's the real sample size for this Blues team? Has it been the last 50 some odd games, or has it been the last 6 games? And I think management has a really good handle on where they are. I don't think, if I'm being honest, I don't think this recent success, this 5-game sample, will change their view and their plan going forward heading into the trade deadline.
That's pretty big because, I mean, you know Doug Armstrong. I mean, Doug Armstrong, he does seem like a guy that even if there's some recent big play from these guys, as we mentioned, that 4-game win streak going into tonight against Dallas, it seems like he's really good at evaluating what a team is even earlier than this.
Yeah, I think Doug is going to be honest with himself. Did they think that this was a playoff team heading into the year? Absolutely. And the fact that I think that they're heading in the right direction, I think it probably makes them realize as much as we need to get faster, we can play fast. And they have played faster. They did it against some really good teams. Winnipeg, Colorado, for parts of this game against Dallas. To be able to do that against top teams, there were some questions last year and heading into the season. Do we have to improve our team speed? He was able to do that with some of those shrewd moves he made with the Edmonton Oilers and picking up two of their players. Holloway certainly added to their team speed. But there are still some holes in this lineup that need to be addressed. And I think that they're not that far off. Now it's about deciding who's a part of the solution going forward. Who are we willing to move on from? There's also a nice indication you signed Tucker to an extension. What does that mean for some of those veteran defensemen that are sitting in the lineup? Are they potentially on the move? Because you don't sign and you don't move those guys without making sure you've got a guy who looks like he can be an everyday player in Tucker. You sign him, in my opinion, with the idea that you're going to move some other guys out.
You mentioned Dylan Holloway, and he has just been really impressive, especially when we're looking at this surge here and the guys who have really contributed tonight. In that first period, he helped tie up the game. I know that Brayden Schenn was a big part of setting him up for that goal, but I mean, Dylan Holloway looks really good right now.
He does. You know what? It's funny. You see guys play on different teams, and all they really need is a different, fresh, new opportunity. He was kind of pushed into a certain role, and give credit to Doug Armstrong, who saw more out of him, potential more. They could do more with him, and he's rewarded them. 20 goals on the season. He looks like an absolute steal right now. Appears to have solidified himself in a top six role for the Blues. Is a young player, plays with pace, and can find the back of the net, and has shown a propensity to score big goals and can score in bunches. Yes, did he go a few games too many perhaps without scoring? Yeah, but that's what goal scorers do. So this was a tremendous find. This is a guy who's shown that he can score goals and play with good players and has great chemistry with Thomas. So that's an amazing find for them and a real bright spot for this team moving forward.
Also, the other part of the offer sheets with the Oilers that we were referencing with Dylan Holloway being a steal, especially for the Blues, Philip Broberg is also playing some of his best hockey, just from what I've observed, especially here recently right now. And I know that he came in hot, so I think that says a lot.
It does. And I think when he got injured, it took some time. For guys who skate as well as he does, everything defensively, offensively, instinct-wise comes from that. And I think that all the D, quite frankly, have really seen what Colton Parayko can do offensively. And I know that a guy like Broberg is sitting there watching going, hey, wait a second. I can skate as well as him. Why can't I jump up in the play and do just that? And he's starting to do and trust his instincts a lot more. And you're seeing the offensive side of his game come to light because of that. And you've seen it also because out of a guy like Justin Faulk, who's shown a little bit more offensive flair. So, it's nice to see it from him. It's nice that he started out hot, kind of cooled off, but I think the injury affected him a little bit more than we anticipated. But now you're starting to see that offensive flair, those instincts, just trusting them, figuring out where you fit in offensively. It takes time, it takes trust, and give your coaching staff credit for giving those guys the rope to make mistakes, to trust their instincts, and to be a part of it offensively.
Just going back to that first period, because I really like the response from the group, especially from Zachary Bolduc, picking up his 10th goal of the year, 5 goals in the last 8 games for him. It seems like he's starting to really just find his groove and his place here in the NHL.
Yeah, it takes time. And, he's a shooter. He's definitely has a tremendous shot. He's trying to find his way. It's hard for younger players. It's not always a linear path. We want them to just take off. It doesn't work like that. Sometimes there's a regression in their game. They're also trying to make sure they're not a liability defensively. He can skate. He's a big body. He has an elite shot that can score from distance, and he's gaining confidence. And let's not forget, he's not playing 18, 19, 20, 22 minutes. He's being productive with 13, 14, 15 minutes a night. it's hard to find those guys that are able to do that. If he's able to become one of those productive guys who can, produce in limited minutes, that's an absolute steal.
For the people who are just coming in the chat right now, the Blues falling to the Dallas Stars tonight in Dallas, 6-3, really tough, especially after they built up those 4 wins. But going back to that, just that push, Jamal, especially after 4 nations, what have you seen with the top line? Is this just these guys, especially playing healthy? When I'm looking at Thomas and Buchnevich.
Yeah, it's definitely health. It's a rejuvenated. It's a sense of responsibility. Certainly that those guys feel from the group, and a responsibility to produce offensively. And I think the fact that they have stepped up coming out of the break is a massive sign of their leadership skills, but also the ownership they're taking to realize, like, you know what? They have pride. They want to make the playoffs. They don't care what the decisions that management's making. That's not how players operate. They want to show up and they want to make the playoffs, and they want their buddies to stay. And they don't want and the only way to do that is to go out and earn that wild card spot. So veteran players realize that changes are made when you underperform as a group. And so you're seeing their leadership come through. Whether or not they're able to do it, it's a good sign that they care, because they're showing up when it matters.
Thomas Welcher weighing in on the chat, and he said, Hofer start was dicey. Blues climbed back. Defense had problems, but if they stay out of the box and Fowler's post shot goes in, and said it's a completely different game, or if Finner starts potentially. What did you think about Hofer tonight?
Yeah, I would say that he would not be happy with his effort. That happens. It doesn't help when you get into penalty trouble. It certainly doesn't make it easier, but I think it was a fair decision to pull him and to put Binder in there. You still have an opportunity to perhaps to get back in the game. But I think it's a fair assessment that Hofer wouldn't be happy with that outing.
Now, you alluded to this a little bit earlier about how key this defensive core has been here recently, but especially one player. So who is your player of the week that has just really responded well for this group?
Well, I think it goes without saying, there's a lot of the D have stepped up, but Colton Parayko, he's got 15 goals now on the season. Yeah, it's just remarkable what he's been able to do, and not at a sacrifice of his defensive play. There has been and had been this tendency in town to want him to be more physical, to want him to be Chris Pronger. And I've always said, if you could have a right-hand shot that plays in all situation, eats up 24 minutes a night, can chip in on the power play, can kill penalties, and score 15 goals, you'd be paying him $10 to $12 million a year. Like, he's a steal. So they've got to be happy. Everybody's got to be happy with what he does and what he's brought to the table. And I think he's gained confidence, obviously, from the 4 nations, and you're seeing it roll into his offensive game all season long.
Make sure that you would put in your question in the chat for Jamal that you guys have for the Blues game tonight, their loss against the Dallas Stars, or just anything that you've seen from this week. And just kind of sticking with that, just something that I observe, and this is just more body language, because we have heard people kind of talk about body language with this team, with certain players, when you're talking about those leaders kind of needing to step up, especially with that trade deadline around the corner. I've just noticed here recently, it seems like this group, and maybe it's just because of the trade deadline being around the corner, you don't notice as much of them like putting their heads down. It seems like they're able to respond well. I know that they lost 6-3 tonight, but you just notice that they're really responding well here recently in games. What do you think has changed there?
We think that there's a certain amount of scar tissue and resilience that you build as a group as the season goes along. And I think that the first point is recognizing it as a group, and then quite frankly, nipping it in the bud and not allowing that to happen. That takes positive self-talk on the bench. That takes reassurance from the coaches when you're doing things well and they don't go the right way. That means a belief in the structure and the system that's in place, because you believe that it's going to work. And then you got to do the work. And when things don't go well, you got to work even harder. And I think that having that inner toughness, that resilience within a group, it becomes contagious. Just like the negative body language can become contagious, the positivity, the positive self-talk, the reassurance on the bench from the coaches, it builds a life of its own when things are going well, and it allows them to maintain and keep their confidence when things don't go well. So even after a loss like tonight, they can get back right to where they were and put this game away because they did so many things well leading up to it. And quite frankly, you could say, well, you know what? We can't allow 4 power play goals and expect to win. You can put the entire game in that box and move on.
Brayden Schenn is one of those leaders, and earlier this week he played in his thousandth career game, which is a huge accomplishment. Also, his brother doing the same, Luke Schenn, who's with the Nashville Predators right now. I mean, what an accomplishment that is for two brothers to be able to accomplish that in the same season.
I believe they're the only eighth pair of brothers to ever play
Yep.
1,000 games. I was actually Luke, his older brother, was a rookie when I was in Toronto. We played together. He was actually going to live with my wife and I, and our we had 2 daughters at the time. He decided against it, and good decision by him. He ended up meeting his wife downtown, living in an apartment in a condo down in Toronto. So he made the right decision not to stay with us. But I did text him, and we reflected on the fact that he played 1,000 game, which is remarkable. And now his brother Brayden played 1,000 games. His parents have to be amazingly proud, not only because of the amazing accomplishment, but just the people that they are and that they've remained to be over the years. And super happy for both of those guys. And there's a reason why they've both been leaders at every step of the way.
And going back to that trade deadline, because we mentioned this last week, but Brayden Schenn has been one of those names that have been brought up in a lot of the trade rumors. So the trade deadline, by the way, for those who are tuning in, it's this Friday, March 7th. You know, we have a lot of people just kind of weighing in on this. And I saw in the chat that Ace also asked the question of, you know, I'm putting you on the spot, Jamal, but if you're making a move, who is it and who are they moving? Do you see them? Has it changed from last week? Do you see a certain player that they might be looking at moving at the trade deadline?
Well, I don't think it's changed their plan. I know that we want it to change the plan because we all want them to make the playoffs. But I will reiterate this. I would not be surprised to see 2 of the 3 of Faulk, Leddy, or Schenn get traded at the deadline.
Yeah. And those are some of your core guys. So that just kind of tells you about where they're kind of viewing things moving forward. But you're right. I mean, especially with the recent play, even leading up to these 4 games, I think Army has a pretty good touch on what this group is. I'll never forget, like, just kind of throwing it back to the Blues Stanley Cup run. He knew that they had the capability of doing that. He's really good at assessing a group, a team, the camaraderie, how they are on and off the ice, and what works there.
Yeah, I think that comes from experience. That comes from an understanding of what the standard is that you want your team to play at. I think that comes from talking to your coaches and understanding, talking to Monty and figuring out what are we missing, who's a part of the solution. And it's not suggesting that if you move guys, it's because they're not part of the solution. It means that perhaps you have to take a step laterally or even back to move forward.
And also, sorry.
No, I'm just saying, the reality is Schenner's value may not be greater than it is right now. Teams are desperate. Teams may overpay to take him and his salary, to give themselves a chance to make them deeper, to go deep in the playoffs. And you have to make that evaluation. Okay, is this going to help us in the long term? And what are we going to get back in return?
Now, I wanted to ask you, because obviously, you have played in the NHL for a long time, over a decade, I believe, like 15 plus years, if I'm correct. Obviously, Stanley Cup champ. What is it like just being a player in the locker room during this period of time leading up to the trade deadline?
It's different from where you are in your career, if I'm being honest. When you're a young player and you're on a good team, you just want to stay there. You want to stay there and you want to be a part of, you want the organization to believe that you're a part of it. When you're in the middle of your career and you're on a winning team, you want to be there and stay there. When you're on the losing team, you're hoping there's another team that might want you to take that push and to covet you so much that they trade for you because you're a valuable player. And with the end of your career, if you're on a winning team, you want to stay. If you're on a losing team, you want to go somewhere to win. And I think it depends on where you are in your career path and how old you are and whether or not you have kids and family. Certainly at the beginning of my career, would have been a heck of a lot easier to be moved and traded. I was fortunate to play in St. Louis for 10 plus years. So, but I knew that if I played long enough that I would make it up on the back end. And I certainly did, playing for 4 teams in the last 6 years. So it depends where you are in your career. And you just hope that there's, like I always joke, like you don't need 28 teams to want you. You just need one. And so if you do get traded, you have to change your mind quickly, as disappointed as you might be, and think about the positives about a new opportunity and someone wanted you.
Now, looking ahead, just kind of going back on this, and you mentioned Tyler Tucker earlier, but we do need to touch on this with the Blues signing Tyler Tucker to that 2-year extension. I listened to Blues head coach Jim Montgomery when he was talking about Tucker, just how impressive he is, not only on the ice and what he likes, what he does there, but also off the ice too. What have you seen from Tucker that makes you say, yeah, this is a great deal to sign him to that 2-year extension?
Well, I got to be honest, I didn't know much about this young player heading into the season. What I've been most impressed about his development is that certainly he's a hard-nosed player. You can see that. He skates much better than I anticipated. He defends extremely well, and he makes a much better first pass. And offensively, understands the flow and how to create offense in a simple way, holding the line, making good plays, keeping plays alive with a good stick, and makes predictable plays for a young defenseman is probably the biggest compliment I can give a young defenseman. So really been impressed with his development, and for him to sign that extension to me is a clear indication that they see him as an everyday guy, whether that's a year from now, maybe next year, maybe one more year with some insulation around him. But it also allows them to make some of these other moves that we're talking about on the market that could be out there to potentially acquire some more assets.
For those who are tuning in, the Blues falling to the Dallas Stars tonight, 6-3, breaking that 4-game win streak. Hey, but at least they were able to win 4 games in a row, even 3 games in a row. Can you just believe that a difference a week makes, Jamal, that we were just talking about last week? They haven't been able to win 3 games, then all of a sudden they just go off for 4 in a row.
You know, and now everyone's sitting here going, "Are you crazy? We got to be adding players. What are you doing?" And
Yeah.
they try to, tell everybody to settle down, settle down. Let's not get too excited. But yeah, we all feel that excitement from how well they've been playing, and they went from not having a 3-game winning streak to now they had a 4-game winning streak, and still, even though they had a loss tonight, playing extremely well and making people give pause. What are they going to do a week from now?
Now, looking ahead, what's next for the Blues as they get ready for that trade deadline on Friday? They face the Ducks and the Kings. What would you like to see in those 2 games from them?
Pick up some points. Those are two. One of the Ducks game for me is a must win, especially if you want this organization to make decisions to keep players around and make that push. And the Kings is not an easy team. They're a team that plays with pace, plays with structure, has sound goaltending. Not an easy opponent by any stretch. So some not so easy games coming up, but none of these games, Brooke, down the stretch are going to be easy. I'm telling you, everything's harder. Offense is harder to come by. The great thing for the Blues is they are playing with a pace I have not seen in 2 or 3 years. And that starts with the back end, how quickly they're moving the puck, the lack of hesitation, the predictability. It's been fun to watch as of late.
Just going to get to one more question before we talk to Mike Meyer about some Blues prospects. And Ace Rob says, I know one thing watching Monty's look after a goal against us is amazing. You can tell he is not happy with the play. He is awesome. So when you're talking about just kind of the pace of play right now, do you think this is kind of like Jim Montgomery's fingerprint that he's putting on these guys and kind of establishing more of the pace of play that he wants?
Absolutely. I think that he wants them to play fast. He wants them to play to value the puck. He wants them to be hard in the 50-50s. He wants them to do all the things, but he's also given them a certain amount of trust that I see in their game. And that only comes from, like, it's different than it was 15, 20 years ago. Coaches now have to make sure the players know you care. And he has an amazing ability to get to know the players and allow them to trust his vision for how he sees their game and how it's going to complement the team game and how they can play without restriction. Doesn't mean you don't put the puck in good areas. Doesn't mean you don't protect your position. Doesn't mean you're not responsible defensively, but you're seeing that offensive lack of thinking, the just going out there and playing mentality. And I think that is Monty's fingerprints directly on this group. And you're getting a glimpse of what they can be going forward, which is a team that can create offensively, but doesn't give up a ton defensively. You just can't take so many penalties and expect to win a hockey game. But that's something I think they'll clean up.
All right, now we have to talk about our newsletter before we get to our talk with Mike Meyer about the Blues prospects. So I have to tell you guys about our newsletter, because make sure you've subscribed to our YouTube page and like this video if you haven't already. Go to sportshubscl.com and sign up for the Hub newsletter sent to your inbox twice a week. Anytime St. Louis sports news breaks, you'll be the first to know about Sports Hub STL events and merchandise, get exclusive content and prize opportunities and more. And while you're on the site, check out all the St. Louis sports content, including game recaps, programming highlights, sports news and opinion, gambling tips, and more. It's all on the website at sportshubstl.com. And now we are going to welcome in one of our Blues writers and is also a part of our Blues Hub post-game staff, and that is Mike Meyer. He's also big on the Blues prospects and will give us all the insights on them. Mike, how are you doing tonight?
Hey guys, I'm doing well. How are you all?
Doing great. We're doing great. I mean, other than, the Blues losing to the Dallas Stars tonight, there's a lot that is positive that was leading up to this, but just kind of looking at the Blues prospects, and you probably heard us talking about this earlier, but Zachary Bolduc, he's kind of one of those young guys stepping up right now. And we've been waiting for this breakthrough from Zachary Bolduc. What have you seen in his progression, especially from being that prospect to pro?
Boy, he's on fire, isn't he? 3 goals in 3 games heading in here to tonight against the Stars. He picked up another goal to be able to tie the game here in the first period. He's really doing all the things I think that a young 22-year-old scoring forward needs to do in the NHL. Montgomery has been consistently talking about his play away from the puck, and I think that's been leading to some increased ice time here for him, some increased opportunities. He's seeing consistent time here right now on the power play. Jamal, I think that you're talking about this year earlier, where he was consistently seeing 9, 10, 11 minutes here of ice time. And now here over the last couple of games, he's seeing closer to 14, 15 minutes here of ice time, as well as time here on the man advantage. So I think that's really helping him just be able to become like this well-rounded individual. I still don't know if he tops out like as a future top line winger, but I can be able to definitely see the well-rounded individual capable of scoring 20 or more goals here each season.
Yeah, it really feels like we've just waiting for that big moment. And then also Holloway and Broberg are two guys that we were talking about earlier too that have just been fantastic here lately.
Yeah, I don't think Doug Armstrong could have planned this addition here to their roster here any better. Holloway entered Sunday night's game here, 5 points in his last 5 games. Now just scores his 20th goal and he's on pace for over 60 points. Broberg cooled off here as of here a little bit. His injury here earlier on, I think, kind of derailed him here a little bit. But his proper placement here amongst the top four, I think it's really helped him. It's built to help all the defensemen. You get that one piece inserted, and now all of the other pieces here around the lineup are able to just put properly here into place. And so, because of that, I think he's soon going to get a chance here on the second power play unit, depending on what happens here with Faulk, potentially here at the trade deadline here or in the offseason. But these are two guys who are becoming potential cornerstone pieces here within this organization.
I think that nobody gets tired about hearing about Jimmy Snuggerud, especially the way that he's been playing here lately. We could just make it like a check-in with University of Minnesota Jimmy Snuggerud report, because I think a lot of Blues fans are excited to see him eventually when the timing works out right. But he's been playing so well lately that I think he's kind of turning some heads for some Hobey Baker Awards or Hobey Baker Award.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He's one of the captains here. For those who don't know, he's one of the captains here of the University of Minnesota. He recently broke a career high, scoring his 22nd goal here in the season in 36 games. And that's a little bit more monumental because over the last 2 years, he's scored 21 in both his freshman and sophomore years. And so people were wondering, what's this guy like without some of the top line stars who have come out of this team here over the last couple of seasons. But I think he's having a heck of a year, really rounding out his game well, being responsible with and without the puck, while juggling a lot of line mates. He's really showing that whatever you need from me, I'll do it mentality. And that's been huge here for Minnesota. I'm really looking forward to the opportunity when the Blues get the chance to be able to sign him, because I think he looks all the part of a future two-way top six forward who can be able to put in at least 25 or more goals here each season.
Kind of sticking with that, I know that a lot of people, of course, even the Blues, were hoping to maybe even see him a little bit sooner. But what is the timeline, just for those people who need a reminder of like what the timeline is for Jimmy Snuggerud and what he wants to accomplish before coming here to the Blues?
He's still with the University of Minnesota here to the end of the year, and it really depends on how far here into the postseason. Selfishly, I want them to obviously be able to go here as long as possible. They're going to be playing the Frozen Four here in St. Louis this season, so if you can, definitely go get out there and get your chance to be able to see Jimmy Snuggerud at that point. Once he's done here with the season, he has the ability to be able to sign here at any single point in time here with the Blues.
So, from all indications, is he going to sign with the Blues, assuming his season ends in time, or is there any thought that he might go back for his senior year?
I think he's proven all that he has to be able to prove here at this point in time here, in the NCAA. He really wants that championship, but I think he also really wants to be able to play here in the pros. And the Blues are the only point here right now. If he wants to be able to play within, the NHL, the Blues are going to be that route. I don't see any sort of signs that would indicate other than just fans saying, well, it's with St. Louis. He may want to play with a bigger market. At that point, I also think you're maybe looking a little bit more down here on your own individual team. And I think you need to really give the Blues here all the props in the world because they've been courting him as long here as possible. And I think they're going to be able to give him a consistent top 6 spot here and probably some power play time here as well, which is going to be very attractive.
That's a great event. I just want to mention that it's awesome that St. Louis is able to host that. Jamal, I didn't know what you thought about that too, the fact that we're able to have that here in St. Louis.
Yeah, it's incredibly special. And I'm a Western Michigan Bronco alumni, and our team is number 4 in the country right now. So fingers are crossed that they're able to make it to the Final Four. And we've never made it that far, but Pat First Riley was my senior captain when I was a freshman as the coach. So he's doing a fantastic job there. And you know what? I'm excited for St. Louis. I'm excited to showcase how popular and how much the fan base loves hockey. And there is no better, more exciting brand of hockey other than the National Hockey League, of course, than the NCAA. And I'm really excited for it to come to St. Louis.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Now, going back to some of the prospects that we're looking at, Nikita Alexandrov has been doing really well for the Springfield Thunderbirds.
Yeah, named the Springfield Thunderbirds top forward here in the month here of February. He had 8 goals and 15 points, along with a +8 rating in 10 games. He's up to 15 goals, 32 points, and a +19 in just 29 games here so far. I think if he was healthy throughout the entire season, you could be talking about one of the top players in the AHL here right now. And he's doing everything right now that you need to, rounding out his full 200-foot game that's warranting a call up here to the NHL. Selfishly, I want to be able to stay down there because the Thunderbirds are fighting here for a playoff spot. They're looking like that they're going to be able to end up making it, and it's on the back here right now of Nikita Alexandrov.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the update. Anything else that you guys might want to touch on there with the prospects?
I think the biggest thing here right now is be able to keep an eye here on Dvorsky, 16 goals, 36 points. He's 7th here in goal scoring amongst all forwards, 11th here in rookies in the AHL. So he is proven as one of those catalyst pieces here for the team, and I think he's going to be able to make it easily here as the 3rd line scoring center here in the NHL next year.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike. And also thank you so much, Jamal, too. This has been a great show, despite the loss tonight against the Dallas Stars. I know that I keep having to say that because there is positive surrounding the Blues right now, despite that loss tonight. But thank you guys so much for joining us for our Blues Hub Weekly show.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you all for watching our Blues Hub Weekly show. It's always great seeing you. And remember, our Blues Hub postgame show is presented by Hot Shots, St. Louis's home for all the games all the time since 1990. Find yours at hotshots.net. That's all for Blues Hub Weekly. We'll see you guys next week.